This is a podcast for spiritual downloads, star seeds, light workers, and authenticity. Spiritual awareness is advised. Welcome to the 1111 podcast. Would you join me by taking a deep breath in and a deep breath out? This is a special Halloween edition, the Halloween bonus. So wherever you are, wherever this is meeting and greeting you, hope that you are well, hope that you are safe, and that you are enjoying this Halloween, this Hallows Eve, this pagan tradition as we know it. And I've been calling it Samhain, but I think it's actually pronounced Samhain. And if I'm still pronouncing it incorrectly, blame it on Hooked on Phonics, not on me, because I'm not exactly sure how it's supposed to be pronounced. But for anyone who is celebrating part of the Celtic tradition, and also for the Hispanic community preparing for the Day of the Dead, I want to go ahead and just say, celebrate safely, responsibly, and let's enjoy. So this is a bonus special, Halloween special. And if you are someone who's been on this journey and you've been on this process, maybe you have a topic that you want to request, or maybe you'd like to be a feature on this platform, please reach out. Let me know if you want to be a guest. Let me know if you have a topic that you want to hear in the upcoming season. Additionally, if you would like me to be a guest on your platform or to collaborate in some way, shape, or form, please reach out. Let me know how to do that, and we will do just that. So I have a special guest today who's joining me in the more political field. And I know we're not supposed to talk about politics or religion, but we talk about everything on here. So we are definitely doing just that. So make sure you stay tuned for this special season, this special episode. And if you haven't already, go ahead and share, like, subscribe, connect to the YouTube channel, connect to the podcast. Donations are always appreciated, whether that's monetary gifts or if you would like to leave a written review or just continuing to share and expand it to the world at large. It's always appreciated. I'm very grateful for you guys. So without further ado, let us pull up a chair, get our snacks, let's take a quick break, and then we will have a special treat for you all. See you then. Hey, have you always wanted to learn how to play a musical instrument, but find it to feel more like work and less like playing? I'll show you an unconventional approach to help you discover your passion. Whether it's playing, producing, writing, or any other creative expression, it needs to be heard. See the description below for more details. Welcome back to the 1111 podcast. Have a special guest today. So glad you all are here to join. As I always like to say, I'm going to let my guests introduce yourself, so please share anything you'd like for us to know.
Good day. I am Commissioner Shan Rose. I am the City of Orlando District 5 Commissioner. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And for those who may not know, what exactly is a commissioner? What does that mean? What is your role, and how did you get into that?
So I'm gonna digest the question in a couple ways. So first, the City of Orlando District 5 starts downtown and it goes all the way to Metro West. It includes downtown high-rises. It includes the Paramore community, the Mercy Drive community, Ivy Lane, Malibu, New Malibu, the Timberleaf area, Vista Lago, all of Kirkman from Old Winter Garden Road down to Conroy Road. And the job of a commissioner is to provide services, what I call right outside of your front door. And it's a packed statement in that it includes sidewalks, it includes the roads and potholes, it includes streetlights, it includes police officers and firefighters, it includes making sure we have neighborhood centers and parks, it includes, and what we have additionally done is that we started doing services inside of the home. So since I've been elected, we have started giving out hotspots to bridge the digital divide. We've started doing myself. I've started partnering and doing food distributions weekly, sometimes monthly within the community. We also have in certain communities, we have device checkouts as well. So not only a hotspot, but you may be able to take home a computer depending on the program that you're participating in. And I would say just working on improving the quality of life. Again, from the minute you step out of your house, and some of that kind of like it's weird because some of that also includes the way communities look. So you may go, you may say, well, I drive into this one particular community and it's a bunch of tall buildings. And then I drive into this other community and then it's all like single family homes. And so we kind of also do that. We kind of look at what we call planning and we plan out communities, how high they should be. We plan out, should this be a single family home? Should we put apartments here? And then within that, then we make sure that we are compliant with our state and our federal codes, whether it's how high a building could be, or if it's what sprinkler system is required. And so that's the ultimate responsibility of a commissioner, is just improving the quality of life for the residents. I like to say the residents, the businesses, and the visitors, because that's what makes up our community, right? So you may not live in District 5, but you may work in District 5. And so technically you're classified as a visitor, right? Even though you're an employer, you're classified as that because you're visiting the district, and then as well as businesses, because without businesses, our communities don't function.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. That sounds like a really detailed oriented job and a lot that goes into it. So I'm sure your hands are always full. So how did you, first, how long have you been elected? And I know that there's another term coming up. So how long have you been in your role, and what are you wanting to see done in the upcoming future continuing this role?
So I've been elected since January 2024. June 2024, and my re-election I would get it in January 2026. So been in serving a little bit over 15 months, and ultimately we've made a lot of great strides and progress, but there's a lot more work to be done. Crime is down 27%. We provided over $1.2 million in business and training stipends. So I'm wanting to continue working with the community to address our day-to-day needs, from a few affordable housing projects that I've started having conversations about, to increasing our youth programming. So one of the things that I have been able and fortunate to do is we have a middle school after school is what I like to call it. So that 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. period where our middle school youth have somewhere to go, and they're not just hanging out in the streets. And unfortunately, they may get in trouble. So reducing that, what's been traditional in our communities, which is the pipeline to prison. So creating resources for our community is really important, and there's a lot more work to be done. We've on a great path of infrastructure improvements in the district. In fact, in the Mercy Drive corridor, today actually we started on the Fair Villa. So Fair Villa is the fork in the road if you're in the Mercy Drive corridor. It takes you to Emery Field as well as the fairgrounds. And so being able to repave a road that's been a long thorn in everyone's side, so to speak, is a joy. And we've got a lot of great things in the pipeline, and I want to continue the work.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely have been involved with certain things like that have really kind of ushered towards finding different ways to have reentry programs and things like that. So I definitely appreciate your work with that. And I love that you said this is for people's neighborhoods and right outside your door in the community, and getting involved with the youth. Now, as the youngest commissioner, how do you get everyone involved, especially the youth and especially people of the African American community who may not be as readily aware of these things or be as encouraged to vote or anything like that? What message would you say to those who are listening?
So, being the youngest elected commissioner in Orange County, not just at the city of Orlando, is one that I've been able and fortunate to carry the mantle, and I've been able to show that the next generation is ready to lead and is ready to continue doing great things. I think there's a fine line of the old traditional saying is that young people just don't listen. And I think I've been able to show if you give us the opportunity, then we could do great things. I would say, my colleague, while he's not in my particular all electeds, we call each other colleagues. And so I think Congressman Frost has shown that we as young people, we can handle the mantle. We as young people, we can stand up to the test of time. We know if we're going to get into a fight, we know what is needed to fight the good fight. And so I would say that the district and the city, because and I tell folks, like, while I'm elected for one district, I represent the whole city. We don't do policies for just District 5. We do policies for the entire city. And so I want folks to realize that I understand government. So I used to work for the city of Orlando. And so a lot of the plans and the projects and the developments that we talked about, we put in paper and say, one day we will make this a real thing. I'm fortunate that I can make it a real thing. I'm fortunate that I live in a space that, I can remember some of the programs that I was just an employee sitting behind the scenes. I was like, we should do this different. And so it brings a different, for me, a different lens. I have a different perspective. So when you were once the person taking those phone calls and figuring out, like, what programs do I have to come up with to better this community, and now being able to say some of those programs are real life, like they've implemented them, and now being able to make them actually work and benefit the community. So that's what I would say. Like, that's what makes me stand out from everybody, even down to my colleagues who sit on the commission with me. I am the only one to work in economic development at the city of Orlando. I have a master's degree in public administration, and then I have a bachelor's degree in business management. So, like, I've got the best of the private and the public sector when it comes to degrees and it comes to education, it comes to understanding. I run a nonprofit, so I understand, the nonprofit world and the things that are missing and the things that could be better and the things that, I might be able to say, can we go advocate for this? Because I remember once upon a time, I didn't have that, or my nonprofit couldn't, this was a gap. I would also say being able to still be a voice for this community is important for me. So, like, I will still go at a commission meeting or a delegation meeting and I'll still speak up, right? While most folks are like, well, you got staff to do that. No, like, my voice is just as loud as sending a staff member. Sometimes we apply for grants on the state and the federal level, and I make a phone call like, hey, we apply for this grant. I could tell you myself what I need it for. Hey, come take a tour here and see what we're doing with the funds. And so it creates a different space. I would say the city of Orlando and Orange County's relationship is probably the best that it has been in a really, really long time. For me, myself, I have a really good working relationship with Commissioner Scott, with Mayor Demings, and then Commissioner Simrad. So those are my two neighboring county commissioners, but then I have a good rapport and relationship with all the rest of the commissioners. And so being able to pick up the phone or send an email and say, hey, I need your help on this or this is what's important. And then being able to get the job done, right? Because you can pick up all the phones in the world, but if you're just picking up the phone, then what are you really doing? And I could talk about a great partnership with the county where there's a community called Harleston Estates that's off of John Young and Colonial. It's behind the pink wall across from the Greyhound bus station. And for a long time, that community had no sidewalks, had poor drainage, and it was always flooding. As a matter of fact, you could go, it rained yesterday, people's driveways are probably muddy because there's poor drainage. And so being able last year to secure funding to be able to start the project, and then this year go to the county to secure additional funding to do more of the project is what is important, and that's what leadership looks like. The crazy thing for me, and I have to tell folks that my role is to get the job done. So that's whether there was a plan started a year before me, 5 years before me, 10 years before me, getting the job done is what's most important. And being able to say I took something to the start line and then to the finish line, because there's projects that, there might have been a project that started that might have stalled. And so am I able to pick up the pieces, figure out what's wrong, bridge that gap, and make it work? And so that's what I've been intentional on doing. We've cut a couple ribbons, we've broke a couple grounds. And so while some of those projects may have been before me, I'm still completing them and I'm still getting them done. When I look at what I would say, like, I could tote and say, like, I'm really proud of is that crime is down 27%. Homicides are down, shootings are down, which means we have a collective city that's working and functioning for the people. And especially, like, everyone, not just like one community or another community, like overall we're doing and we're getting the job done.
Right, definitely. And I definitely appreciate, like, even you mentioned Maxwell Frost and yourself being younger people in politics. you guys have a very approachable nature. I was honored to meet Maxwell Frost at it was a pro-choice rally, and he was just so approachable. And then even for those who have never spoken to you or never had the opportunity to see you, like for anyone listening, and especially in this district, Commissioner Rose is always someone who is personable and approachable. And like you just said, everything you've mentioned, you guys have practical ways of actually completing them. It's not just pie in the sky, it's not just words, it's actually follow through on those words. And that's definitely something that I've experienced even in the short amount of time of just even reaching out. I remember one of the first times I reached out to you was actually on Twitter, when it was still called Twitter. And just the way you had responded was so personable and so surprising to me that I even got a response, because a lot of times you can feel like people in politics are people who have that leadership role, have that unattainable aspect to them. But you've always been someone who's really been involved with the community and really been approachable. And I think that that's something that I think the community needs to understand, that we can actually talk to the people and actually have our voices heard. And I really also appreciate that your voice, you understand the magnitude of your voice, and knowing that, you speaking up, yes, you can have someone else do it, but actually you being yourself to do it has a huge impact. So thank you for all of that. And you also mentioned, that crime is down 27%. What would you say were some of the practical steps to do that? And you also mentioned, gun violence and things like that. There's a lot of people who may be nervous with like school programs and school shootings and things like that. And also just my condolences of what I've learned from hearing more of your story. So I want to send my condolences to you on that as well. But what were the practical steps to get crime down, and how has that been for you personally?
So, thank you for the condolences. Safety is a top priority at the city of Orlando, and so we have a motto where we will not jail our way through the situations that our community is facing. And our community faces a lot of different issues. And so a lot of it is, and so that's why I've been fortunate. So I live in the Paramore community, and I've been in Paramore since 2018. And so having the opportunity, and when I moved into Paramore, it was a time where it was rough. I won't sugarcoat and say like, oh yeah, it was frills and it was pretty. No, it was a lot of shootings, there was a lot of negativity, but it's being able to look at what's going on, being able to speak up about what's going on, and finding ways to improve. I would say there's a good working relationship in our communities with both our code enforcement, our law enforcement, and that's a piece of the pie. And so the reason why I say that's a piece of the pie is because unfortunately sometimes a code enforcement issue may rise as something else, whether it's a gate that's cut through that people are using to run from the police, or a gate, or there's just different methods, there's different things that happen. So I'd say a special shout out to the police department as well as code enforcement when it comes to collaboratively working together. And then as we continue to go down the line, we have social services that are in place to address our biggest needs. And so when we talk about gun violence, we've got this crime, it's called CVI, crime violence intervention. And so when we learn of a situation, whether it's two individuals that are shooting at each other, or a fight that could potentially escalate, being able to get in, jump in, and de-escalate. And so we've got a program, CVI, that's run by a group called Peace Orlando through the city with our partners at Florida Rights Restoration Coalition, FRRC. And we also provide full wraparound services. And so if we can get to the root cause of what's causing the crime, then we could figure it all out from there. And so some of it is making sure we've got more youth programming. Some of it is making sure that we've got summer jobs for our kids. Some of it is making sure that we have a program called RISE that helps individuals with upskilling, getting better training to get better paying jobs. And so if I can improve your economics, your socioeconomic issues, then I can work on everything else. And so we provide mental health. And so being able to dig apart and look at a person who might be unfortunately causing crime and say what could we do differently, what is it that you're missing. And so we provide full services, whether it's food, it's mental health, it's we take kids on field trips, whether it's we're helping families with utilities, we're helping families with paying rent. And so making sure that we have the tools and resources to reduce what most crimes, not all, many of our crimes in our community are economic crimes. And so can we reduce the economic crimes? Can we reduce the person who's the porch pirate? Can we reduce the individual who's going into Target and stealing? Can we work on finding employment for a second chance? So someone who maybe, just came out of prison or has been recently arrested, can we find apartment complexes for individuals who, again, maybe just coming out of prison or may have had a background? And so that's what we're intentional on. Like, it's a full wraparound to be able to reduce recidivism. And that looks like not being scared, being able to say we're going to tackle this head on, and we're willing to take on whoever's got something to say about it. And I think that's what we've been intentional on at the city is, just making sure we're meeting the needs of the community and really just hearing from people, because what we may think may work, and I've been intentional on that, when what I may think may work may not necessarily be what you think will work. And so being able to talk to people, have conversations and say, what can we do better is what we're intentional on at this city.
Yeah, definitely. I think all of that is really good practical steps, and you have the results to show. So I definitely continuing all of that, and then even just like you said, being willing to listen, to understand. I think that's also the flexibility of people from different generations, is knowing that there can be different ways of getting things done and remaining open to that. So I definitely appreciate that. Something I was working, a company or an organization, I should say, I was working with was Smart and Safe Florida, which is really about, the petitioning for legalizing recreational cannabis. And that would also, decriminalize it as well for people who have been, incarcerated for things like that. What are your thoughts on it? And do you think it would benefit the economy to have that legalized, or do you think it would harm the economy? Or just in general, what is your thoughts on that?
I think it's a very packed question. What the city of Orlando has done is we've created policy that decriminalizes a certain amount of marijuana, and marijuana is no longer PC to search. So those are some of the things to look at. I think holistically, and it's where there's scientific studies, right? And it's a very packed conversation, because there's scientific studies that say, we've all grown up in the era where what they say, marijuana is the gateway drug, right? And so besides that old adage, I think the unfortunately easy access to so many other drugs, I think is also something that as government, you have to do a check and balance. And so, we've had unfortunately, fentanyl has been a really toxic drug in our community. And so when we hear individuals that, go to buy marijuana and they end up with fentanyl in their marijuana. And so I think that's where there's a fine line of, what do we really do? And how do we support it so that we don't find ourselves, again, in places where people are buying laced marijuana? And how do you encourage people, hey, don't buy this street drug, go buy it from a dispensary with your license, etc. So I think that's where we're struggling as a community. It's really because of the other toxic drugs that are part of medical marijuana.
Yeah. And something else that you've mentioned, I've heard it here and I've heard it just in other places that you've spoken, is that just like you just mentioned, that you are someone who's not just for District 5, but really for the whole state. And you've always been someone who, like you said, wants to bridge the gap between the aisle, and you don't see things as, just black and white or this party, that party. You're someone who's for everybody. And there's a lot of, as I call it, separation consciousness and a lot of fear mongering that can happen in politics, and, making people have to feel like they have to choose one side or have to discriminate against certain people and all of these different things. How do you navigate working in those spaces with people who may not be as willing or ready to listen to what you have to say, regardless of how open you may show up? How do you navigate those spaces?
You just have to be open, and you have to let a person, when you So I'm a wholeheartedly believe in knowing your audience. And when you know your audience, you can navigate appropriately. And I say that because I've always worked on both sides of the aisle when it comes to getting stuff done. And so I've had the opportunity of taking Republican legislators, staff through the community to see, when we apply for money, I want you to see what we're doing with it, right? And so that visual context, and not just a black and white paper with pictures, but like the visuals, like, okay, wait, hold on, they really do need this help. And so that's what I'm intentional on. It's like, it's knowing your audience, knowing how to communicate effectively, and then knowing when sometimes you've come to an end when a conversation has started, and then just walk away, right? It's okay to walk away from a conversation that is going nowhere, because for everyone, there's one that doesn't agree with you. There'll be one or more that will listen, right? And so it's really just knowing your audience. And for me, I never, and I mean absolutely, I never get heavily involved in something that I'm not fully researched on. And so when I say, for me, homelessness, I've experienced homelessness. When we talk about gun violence and ways to protect and program, and I lost my husband to gun violence. So I'm intentional on making sure that no family goes without. When we talk about homelessness, I think about the things and the gaps and things that I wish I'd had this or that in order for me to be successful in gaining somewhere to stay. I wish I had, I wish the nightclub had certain protocols in place because my husband may be here. When I'm thinking about when I lost my son, like what gaps were there, and what could I do differently to make sure no one else has to experience that? How do I? And so losing my son, 3.5 years old, learning how to navigate through insurance, learning how there is a case manager and there is a case worker for most insurances that you can call, and they can navigate you through how do you get the best service, what, because they have other clients who may have a child, they may have a client that has, I'll use autism as a word, and they may say, well, these are the specialties that I've heard, specialty doctors that I've heard work, or these are the specialty programs. And so being able to educate individuals is what's important for me. And so I live in that space. Education, what filling in the gaps can be done to be successful in navigating anything. So if I know that there's a gap there, I'm able to speak up and say, well, there was a gap during this, and this, or I think this could be better. So like that's how I navigate through the right, the left. I don't live in this space of, I'm not about to walk in that room because it's gonna be a room full of Republicans. Why not, right? Like that. They run the state in this country. If I'm not willing to walk inside of a room and have a conversation with them, then I'm not a leader, right?
Yeah.
If I'm not willing to sell my soul, I'm very big. I have my values. I know what I will and I won't do. And so it's being confident in that and knowing like I have integrity, I have values, and I have morals. I know what I will and I won't do. I'm not gonna sell my soul, but what I will do is I will speak up. I will tell you where there's a gap. I will say, hey, you did this in this county, maybe you did this in a red county, right? And so being able to navigate through those waters, for me, I would say it's been easy, and it's because, again, like I know exactly what I want. I know exactly what I need for the communities that I can come back and I can bring back services.
Absolutely. Yeah. I thank you for sharing. I think that that's extremely important. The vulnerability, the transparency, and also just knowing yourself. I do think that can be the guide to help you navigate any area that you're in, and can also keep you, like you said, from not being corrupted. Because I can imagine it's a lot of ways that could happen, but the more that you're attuned with yourself, I imagine it's a little bit more difficult. So that's good to know that that you're aware of that. As we get ready to wrap up, I did want to just ask, what challenges have you experienced as a woman, as a person of color, and again, anything against your age or anything like that?
Age and women have been the thing, and so it's this weird space where folks are like, oh, you're the youngest in the room, you don't know. Well, hold on, back up. Don't let my age fool you. I've had a lot of life experiences that allow me to be able to get results for others. So I'll start there. But then the other part is, as a city commissioner in Orlando, I'm the only elected commissioner who's actually worked inside of the four walls that I'm actually governing right now. So I worked at the city, I worked in economic development, I know how to navigate. I was in the community redevelopment agency as well as the permitting office. So like those are your two key pieces of just government, like how do buildings being built, how, you know, the structure of them, what is needed, what's not needed. And so that's how I've been able to navigate my age. I'm still a female in a man's world. I don't care, even if there's more women, this is still a man's world. And so, but I'm confident. And that's what I say. There's a difference between cocky and confidence. And I'm very confident because I know exactly what I need for my community. I know what it takes. I know the conversations to have. And so I would say I'm grateful for the hardships I had to go through, in the sense that like it allows me to have a stronger voice. It allows me to say this won't work or that won't work, or the old adage of like, if you keep repeating and doing the same thing and it doesn't work, that's insanity. So you got to try something different. And so, you know, I've been able to do that. Being the commissioner with the majority of the downtown nightlife has been a struggle. Like I could say that's probably been a struggle for me, because I would say some folks just don't know what they want and how they want to get there. And so what has happened, but prior to me, it's kind of been this, let's just push the business out and start fresh. And I have to remind folks, like, people have spent their whole life savings to open up a business, right? When I think about having to put my whole life savings into down payment for my house, I can only imagine someone who's done that for a business, right? You put your blood, sweat, tears, money, your family. Some people put their whole families on the line for a business. And so being able to put myself in other shoes, to be able to navigate and come up with solutions. And again, it's not on my own, right? It's really listening and saying, what's the middle ground? Because tell you this, if you let some of these businesses give you all the ideas, it's going to just benefit them, right? But it's, how do I take your idea? How do I take what I would like to see happen, and how do I make them? How do I merge them to make them one? How do I merge them to make it work for this entire community? Whether it's saying, you know, what's the best affordable housing complex to place, and where's the best place? Do we do a senior complex? Do we do it in District 5? Do we do it in 6? And so being able to have those, you know, those real life conversations, I would say they're a challenge, but they're an opportunity. And that's how I see things in life, right? For every, like, how do I make something out of this? How do I make it what I need it to be, which is a benefit for all? And so that's what I've been intentional on. I would say, you know, some of my other challenges besides my age and my gender, I won't say race necessarily plays a part. I would say what one may perceive as race, I see it as I'm the freshman also, because that's also the thing. As the new commissioner, you're the freshman. And so others feel like, well, I've been here longer than you, so I get to dictate this, or I get more of this, or I get more of that. And so, you know, that's that hard hat, and that's that hardship of navigating through that. I think the last challenge that I'm overcoming is that folks don't know me. And so there's some folks who are set on the past who don't want to get to know me. And it's like, well, how can I serve you if you pushing me away? Right? How can I be the best leader for this community? Because regardless of how you want to, I am your commissioner, right? Like, and it happens all the time. You know, it's the same thing we're fighting right now with, some may not like the president, right? But he's the president. So you got to find a way, if you need something or you want to get something done, you got to find a way to navigate that. So I would say that's a challenge that I'm slowly overcoming. You know, I'm just going to continue to be available. I'm just going to continue to be open. I'm just going to continue to serve. I'm going to get up every single day with the same motto. You know, I don't hold hard feelings. I don't live that anywhere else. I don't have cliques, and I don't believe in tokenism. I believe in serving everybody, no matter who you are, man, woman, white, black, Asian. I serve everybody. And so intentional on that, like, I don't judge a book by its cover. Just how can I help you? Is what I've been able to serve this district.
Yeah, Absolutely. Thank you so much because, yeah, all of that 100% agree with. And, those challenges, it's all about that resilience of how to overcome them, how to build those muscles and overcome those struggles, because, like you said, it's those experiences that have given you the wisdom that you have, the discernment you have, all of that that's helped navigate. And so there's a saying that says, we don't mature by our age, but we mature by our experiences. So you've definitely had a plethora of them, and that's, I'm sure, just even the surface. So you've already had a lot of experiences that have well equipped you, and to not even let those others bother you, I think is a very good thing. It's just continuing on who you are, and I think that's what everyone should be striving for. So thank you for being not only a leader of that, but actual model of that. So thank you for doing that. Where do you see yourself? Like, do you plan on staying at the local level, or do you want to go further up in politics?
Well, praying on that. I'm gonna let God lead because politics was not my like. This was not like I didn't grow up and say I want to be about. I didn't. This was not my roadmap. My roadmap was either a lawyer or working for government because my grandmother used to work for the government. That was it. Nothing more. But I would say my master's degree was my turning point of the political world. And you get a degree, you do all these research papers and research projects on like how the government should function, and then you're working and you're like, hold on, this book says we should be serving like this, but we don't do that.
Yeah.
And so, navigating through those muddy waters and ultimately realizing that the next generation is not being represented on council, on commission, and no one could point to a plan for that, right? No one could say, well, we've got here these vacant board seats, come join up. Like, that wasn't even a thing. It was like it's the who's who you rubbing elbows with to be able to get a board appointment. And so it's like that's not the way our government is supposed to function. It's supposed to be like, this whole FIFO thing, first in, first out, right? Like if I put my application in first, it's supposed to be the first one out, and and navigating through those. And it was in that moment, I would say it was during COVID was my turning point of why I wanted to get into politics, because COVID hit this country. COVID hit this community, and I would just talk about my community in Paramore. 60% of the residents don't have their own vehicle, and they don't have their own car to get anywhere. So they use some other mode of transportation, whether they're walking, biking, scootering, Ubering. And when I look at the response to COVID, where COVID testing was at the convention center, and you have to think about that from your inner cities, that's an hour and a half to 2 hour bus ride. So if I feel like I'm sick and I got COVID, I have to get on this bus for 2 hours. Okay, wait, Houston, we got a problem. Same thing with mask, like COVID mask. Like, you got to go to the nearest. I'm like, so I was able to receive those resources for the community that I live in and for the community that I serve. And it made me wake up like, oh, folks are just out here for a picture. It ain't really about serving the people. It's about like, how can I jump in front of this picture, in front of this camera, so that people could see I'm doing something, but I don't have the actual drive. And so like COVID was really my turning point that made me wake up, realize that it's time for new leadership in this community, because lives will be lost if leadership isn't doing the right thing. And so, I've watched that time and time again when we talk about like, now that I'm in a space where gun violence is down and shootings are down, it's like, okay, well, maybe we were doing something wrong, and we're in a good space, there's a lot of great things happening, and I want to continue doing that. But that was really my driving force. It was kind of like watching a global crisis happen, and how no one really thought about the inner communities and the inner circles, other than when there was a camera to tote around, other than when there was an opportunity to hand you something that made you say, oh, look at what so-and-so gave me. It wasn't even their idea. Like, they heard that from, everybody else. So I would say that was my turning point in that realm. So I'm navigating. I will let God lead me to what's next and what's to come.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm definitely glad that you are in leadership, and I'm glad that you already took that call to step into this role. I do think it's important. It's needed. So before we go, is there anything as far as any events coming up, and where can we connect with you, slash where can we go to vote to get you reelected?
So election day is next Tuesday, November 4th, and early voting has begun. It's all this week from October 27th, so that was yesterday, until the 31st, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Cayley office, and then on Saturday and then Sunday at Cayley as well. And then there's a break on Monday, but Tuesday, November 4th, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. There are 5 precincts within the District 5 corridor: the Fire Station 12, the Rock Lake Community Center, the Jackson Center, the Northwest Center, and then Majestic Life Church. And so those are the places within the district. I would tell everyone, if you're going to go out on Tuesday to vote, make sure you go online, OCF Elections, and find out exactly where to vote. I don't want anyone making mistakes. But I want you to know that, like, I've been serving with my 3 Ps with purpose, presence, and putting the people of District 5 first. And I want to be able to continue to do that, leading with integrity, honesty, and transparency here in District 5.
Awesome. Any ways that we can connect with you, either social media or anything like that?
So, Playing with Shan Rose. So everything I am ShanRose. District 5 pages are District 5, both on Instagram, Facebook, and then Shan Rose. You'll find me. I'm wearing a red suit. Can't miss me on my Facebook pages and Instagram pages. And you can always text me or call me 407-255-7426, and that'll go directly to me. So I appreciate you.
Absolutely, likewise. So thank you again for being my special guest. And everyone, make sure you guys connect. Go out and vote, regardless if you're in Florida. The state votes are very important. So make sure you guys do that. Be well. Take care.